the Arkyana podcast. I think I've lost count, but I know this is the week going into the LSU game. I can't count anymore, especially after it was 53-52, right?
Week 11?
It's week 11 probably of the season.
Yeah.
But I don't know which one we're doing here, but it's the one of celebration with a big win over Ole Miss and a big chance. I said 3 weeks ago, guys, I said I really could see them winning out. You do remember that. And I said it on the Hog Zone, too.
Yeah.
But they can't win it out without winning this week. Let's not talk about LSU just yet. Let's enjoy Ole Miss just a little longer on a Tuesday morning back at Starbucks. Beautiful day, sun out. And we don't have a whole lot of time, so let's get straight to it. We'll start with Rick since he was there. Rick, your thoughts on Ole Miss and what Arkansas did, maybe behind the scenes, not the obvious of the winning in overtime and Hunter Henry's great thinking play and all that, but how did Arkansas win that ball game Saturday?
Tell us about the Grove too.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to enjoy the partying component due to the fact that my daughter Julia and I, we drove in, literally walked straight over to the stadium and had got our tickets and we're sitting down. That's what it was. We arrived for game time. We hung around for a little while afterwards to see the Hogs get on the bus. We saw some mutual friends and talked to the Henrys for a little while, and it was exciting. But reflecting on the game, I'll tell you this much: I saw Keon Hatcher going into the game, and I asked him whether the guys were ready. He goes, "Oh yeah, we can get this one." And you can see the confidence there.
Wait a minute. Have you ever talked to them when they said we can't get this one? Nah, we're not going to get this one.
No, you can just tell. And so,
it was just a different answer.
It was a different answer. Like, oh yeah, man, we're going to get it was. We're going to get this one. And they could. And their game plan was spot on. Let's talk about first off let's talk about the bad, the defense. Gave up a ton of yards.
Can't
but
tackle.
If there
Why
is,
can't we tackle?
If you are a fan, the last person you need to question is Rob Smith. Because I'll tell you, schematically, he dialed up what needed to happen. We had 6 sacks that didn't happen that would have won the game for us if they would have happened. That is literally, just overrunning the football and a good athlete at quarterback in Kelly. He really is a really good quarterback. I would love to have him in any type of system that I think that guy could produce. On the offensive side of the ball, I think that Enos, Bielema, Smith, and Pittman, and Lunny, they have been listening to the Arkyana podcast because basically they are now doing what we've asked them to do, attacking all zones on the offensive side of the ball in the passing game. And then the run game, you don't know which gap they're going to hit, so the play-action pass is there because the run is going in every direction. I mean, you had 2 running backs go over 100 yards against these guys, against a more athletic team than we were. That goes to show the coaching's there, but you want to know, we've recruited pretty well, too.
I'll just remind you, gentlemen, that I predicted the score to be 33-30 in overtime. I don't know if y'all recall that.
Yes, I do.
But very good day. I don't know about you guys on the listening to this, but it's just a different environment in Arkansas when the team has a game like that. Everybody has a pep in their step, beautiful attitudes, and of course the weather's to match. So when it comes to defense, Rick is right on. I felt like our scheme indicates our lack of ability at certain positions. We have to run a 4-man front because that's where our strength is. That's where our depth is, right? These guys did a pretty good job of controlling the gaps, but when you have 2 inside linebackers that are having to be a part of the box as well, oftentimes if you have an aggressive, well-running quarterback, he's going to expose you, and that's what happened. It's hard for those 4 guys to have big gap sound and to collapse the pocket without having an aggressive quarterback hitting the open spot. So on defense, that was what I felt. You have to have those. You have to have those 6 defensive backs against a team like Ole Miss. I think against LSU, you'll see a little bit different. We might have an extra guy, maybe with a little bit of a stunt game going against LSU's run. So that's something you might see a little different. On offense, when you come out and you're able to throw the ball like that and you have a quarterback that performs like that, it's going to be a long day for the defense, and I don't care what defense you're playing. So, again, all cylinders there.
Yeah, I do want to point out, before we do talk about LSU, that Alabama, with, the best front seven in all of college football, maybe one of the best that's been assembled, only headed to both those seven. They didn't have to play 8 in the box most of that game the other night. They were able to defend with 7 and play their 4-man coverage in the back, and it really, dominated that game. There were a lot of, you can see on the internet, a lot of pictures of, formations, and LSU couldn't block, the 7-man front, even when they brought a tight end in and all that, and Alabama dominated them. Gap sound stuff, I think that you're talking about is important. I don't know if all the fans understand that and understand the gaps, but our linebackers do have to have those gaps right outside the 4 up front, and it looked like Kelly, that was an exploited area, which at some point, it's got to be corrected. And then our leading tackler was Kevin Richardson Jr., or Kevin Richardson II, out of Jacksonville, a walk-on D-back was the leading tackler. They probably needed a category for missed tackles, because a bunch of our depended on scholarship D-backs were out there just reaching, grabbing, leaving their feet, taking bad angles. It's almost as if the look they may get in scout team week or whatever isn't good enough or something, but they get on the field and it's like a whole different speed for them. And I was trying to explain to a lot of people, it isn't coaching. Don't rip on the coaches necessarily for bad tackling. It's better players are harder to tackle. But I wanted you guys as defensive guys to hit on this point first, to get this out of the way about tackling, and then how it approaches with LSU.
First repeat, Rob Smith's scheme is sound. It is the scheme. It was the execution that caused that. So put that out there first.
Right. I want to ask you, too, before too far. I told you in Twitter, or I sent you a private message or something. I said, look at the play, the only overtime, their touchdown, when our linebacker, who's got gap responsibility for where the quarterback goes, he goes taking off out to the flat with a receiver that's already covered by that corner. Dean's over there with coverage, and you see our corner vacate that gap. The linebacker vacate that gap. What's going on in these kids' minds?
Well, it first off, it is miscommunication at times with the defense. You've got to remember, you've got some young guys that are out on the field, but it comes down to them doing what they're told from a technique perspective. Great example. I rewatched the play where they dumped the ball out in the flat on a hitch to the Ole Miss receiver. I think his number was 3. And Jared Collins misses the tackle. Then Andre Tolliver misses the tackle. Then Rohan Gaines misses the tackle and they score a touchdown. That was to open the second half. Right. Okay? Basically what happened on that play, Jared Collins goes low, but he doesn't run his feet. Okay, so that's a technique thing. Just keep your feet running and grab. But he doesn't run his feet. He just kind of lunges. And when you lunge, you're leaving your feet. And then you have nothing to get traction to run through the tackle. Then the next thing, I'm watching Andre Tolliver, and he takes just a horrible angle. He takes an angle. He's like leading a duck, which when you're leading a duck on an angle like that, you can get cut back on. And he cut back on him, so he hadn't left an open lane. If he would have chased the backside hip of the receiver and just tackled him from behind and rolled, he would have gotten him. Then Gaines comes up and he lunges at him. 2 lunges and 1 bad angle equal a touchdown. And you go out to practice, Mike and I
work on it every day. You've got the shadow man where you're supposed to work your legs, drive through and roll, and then you also have hind hip. We practice that every day in high school. They do as well in Fayetteville.
Yeah, so it's being taught. It's about doing it. You talk about Richardson. I'll tell you, Richardson, though, he's the example of what Brett Bielema wants in his walk-on program.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm not knocking him. I'm glad he was the leading tackler.
Yeah.
He's the guy that mostly did what he was supposed to do.
But they talk about him. But they talk about him studying and working and putting himself in position where he's taken Andre Tolliver, who could have played at a bunch of different schools, and he's out playing him. And that's why he's starting at the nickel position. And they blitz him. He's not that big. He's like 185 pounds, but he plays bigger.
He was mostly a running back at Jacksonville.
But that shows how athletic he is.
He was an athlete, but he went up there as a 2,000-yard running back, from Jacksonville High with no scholarship.
Yeah, and that's where that's what's hidden here in the state of Arkansas, and that's what Arkansas needs to win with. I read an article this morning talking about the play. The play was 5 Arkansas kids. Hunter Henry plays 5 Arkansas kids and 2 imports, right?
Yeah.
So basically, they talk about Hunter Henry, okay, Drew Morgan, Brandon Allen, Sprinkle.
Yeah.
And who was the fifth?
You're not going to give credit to Skipper for the...
Well,
Skipper and Collins.
So Collins and Skipper were the 2 guys from out of state, and the 5 guys from the state of Arkansas made that happen. That's how this program's going to win. It's with the in-state guys making plays, because you're telling me that Brandon Allen doesn't have heart, Hunter Henry doesn't have heart, Drew Morgan, Richardson, these are guys that, these are
Dominic Reed.
Dominic
the
Reed.
difference in the offense, too, can be attributed to a lot of things. Obviously, the line has come together. This isn't the same offensive line. It is in personnel, but it's not in the way they're playing together, as opposed to Toledo and Texas Tech, those games early. This line has gelled. The institution into the offense of Cornelius, obviously, but also Dominic Reed, after 7 or 8 weeks coming out of a JUCO and learning the system, he finally began to blossom. It started a little bit at Tennessee, and then he saw a little bit at Alabama, and then more after the open week, against Auburn and last week. And now he was one of the big, huge stars of the game the other day.
But, that goes to the thing that, this can blend into us talking about LSU. One word. Do you see just confidence overflowing with his team, or what? And because when you have confidence, you get more excited to show up for work on Sunday morning when you have to go get treatment and watch film. You get more excited to come in on Monday on your own.
Starter.
Where you can just continue to build on the next week. That is something that going into this game that you can take from Ole Miss going into LSU. You want to go to practice. You think LSU feels real good about themselves watching their butts get kicked by Alabama? No, they do not. It's not as exciting to go to practice. It's not like, parents like, well, we're going to get them next week. Not necessarily, Ole Miss, this was a revenge game for Ole Miss, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was not going to feel that.
And that concludes our first take of the Arkyana podcast. We'll be back with the Arkyana Hogs and part 2 after these messages, and there are none. But hey, if you want to be a sponsor of the show, like Starbucks, if you'd like to give us a little free coffee, or Pizza Cafe, we love the Pizza Cafe. We love giving out free ads, so anybody else want to sponsor us, we'll be happy to take your sponsorship calls. Just give us a shout. Anyway, back with part 2 in just a minute.
You need some